Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to another lesson. In today's lesson, we'll continue talking about the conditionals, covering the past unreal or the third conditional, and then we'll go over a bit of the more advanced use cases. So after finishing today's lesson, you will be able to understand the past unreal or third conditional, talk about what you would have done differently in the past, talk about regrets or wishes about the past, mix conditionals when you need to, and you'll be able to play around with the structure of conditionals a bit to communicate things in different ways. So we use the past unreal conditional when we want to express regret or to express how things might have been if things had gone differently. The structure for this is if plus the subject plus a past perfect clause, and sometimes you'll have a then in there, and then the subject plus would, could, or might, so some modal verb there, plus a present perfect clause. All right, I know it sounds a bit much now, but it's more simple, I think, than it sounds. So, for example, if I had known it was your birthday, I would have bought you a gift. In this example, I didn't buy you a gift because I didn't know it was your birthday, right? But if I had known, I would have bought you one. We call it the past unreal because we can never change the past. So we can never really talk about changing the past as if it was a real possibility. A few more examples. If I hadn't been injured, we would have won the match. But I did get injured and we lost, so it's unreal because we can't change it now, right? If I hadn't lost my ticket, I would have been on time. But I did lose my ticket, so I was late. And the last one, if I had taken university more seriously, I would have gotten a better job. Again, we're expressing regret here, right? We're communicating that we wish we would have studied harder and then we would have a better job now. All right, so we can also say these without the if. The if in that case is what we would call implied, right? So which means that even though it's not there in the sentence, you understand it the same way as if it is written there. All right, so for example, had I not been injured, we would have won the match. Same as saying like we did in the previous, if I had not, okay? Had I found my ticket, I would have been on time. Same as saying if I had not lost my ticket, right? Or if I had found my ticket, exact same thing. Had I taken university more seriously, I would have gotten a better job, okay? Again, the same, we're communicating this exactly the same as if we said if, but we're just leaving out the if because we know that you know that I mean it anyway, right? So it is implied. So in the sentence structure lesson, I talk about how English is called a head-first language, right? Which means we always put what's most important first, all right? But we're the ones who decide what's most important, okay? If we want to stress one thing, we put that thing first. If we want to stress a different thing and make that thing sound most important, then we say that thing first, okay? So we can also flip the structure around here of the third conditional and put the result first and the hypothetical clause last. So a few examples would be, we would have won the match if I hadn't been injured, okay? Here we're putting the, we would have won, you know, we could put some extra stress on that in the beginning if we want to, right? Or I would have been on time if I hadn't lost my ticket, right? So here we're putting the stress, the importance on, I would have been on time, I really would have, right? And then in the last one, I would have gotten a better job if I had just taken university more seriously, okay? By flipping it around in all these, we're showing that we're putting more importance on the first part of the sentence, right? So when we move it to the first part, for whatever reason it would be in that particular sentence of why you want to communicate it that way, when the listener hears it, the part that you say first now sounds more important to them, okay? And in all of these, you notice there's no comma now because we're starting with the who followed by the what, and then we give the why, okay? In the other structure, we start with the why, so we need the comma after that introductory conditional clause. All right, so sometimes we use the present unreal conditional to communicate that something is unlikely, right? We do that by saying, if plus something were to happen, then do this, okay? So for example, if someone were to call, just tell them I'm in a meeting, okay? So if we said if someone calls, then now that sounds like it's likely or quite possible that someone might call, okay? But if we say if someone were to call, then now it sounds unlikely that someone will call, okay? So if we're giving someone instructions for maybe they're covering our desk while we're gone to lunch or something like that, but we want them to know that, hey, relax, it's really not likely that somebody's going to call while I'm gone. We say if someone were to call, just to give them the instructions of like, just in case it happens, here's what you need to do, but it's not likely, so don't worry about it too much. Sometimes we have more complex conditional scenarios where we mix conditionals to talk about them. So some examples, if you had listened yesterday, you would understand now. Now, if you remember in the last lesson, I said you need to keep consistency on the conditionality, right? What I mean is that you can't contradict the conditionality, okay? If you're saying something is unlikely in one place, you can't then make it a likely possibility in another place, okay? But so in this example, if you had listened yesterday, you would understand now. That past unreal can't be changed, right? We can't change that you didn't listen yesterday, okay? But we can say you would understand now if you had listened yesterday, okay? You don't understand now, so now that's present unreal because you don't understand it now, but we can combine the present unreal with the past unreal because we're saying if you had done something differently, something would be different now, okay? In the next example, if you studied hard like this all the time, you wouldn't have failed so many classes already. Here we're combining the present unreal with the past unreal to say how if you were different now in a present simple way, then much of your life, in your past life as well, although it's unchangeable, would actually be different, okay? So we can have these advanced use cases where we actually mix the conditionals to say if you were different now, then your past would have been different, right? Or if you were different in your routines, your whole life would have been different. Or we can say if you had done something different back then your future would be different, right? Or something like that, okay? So again, I'm not expecting you to master mixing the conditionals already, but as you go through the worksheets, I want you to understand why you would do it and see how it is fairly easy actually to mix it if you know what you're trying to communicate. All right, to summarize, we use the past unreal conditional when we want to express regret or to express how things might have been, all right? And that structure is if plus the subject plus a past perfect clause plus possibly then and the subject plus would, could, or might or some other modal verb plus a present perfect clause, okay? Sometimes we use the present unreal conditional to communicate that something is unlikely, all right? Sometimes we mix conditionals to talk about more complex scenarios, and you can flip the structure of a conditional sentence if you want to emphasize one side more than the other. Okay, everybody, that's it for the conditionals. We've now covered the basic ones and the more advanced uses, so you should have them all covered. If you combine this with the lessons from the other tenses, you should be feeling really good about making real progress towards fluency, okay? Now, the better you get at all these tenses and flipping between them, the closer you get to speaking English in an effortless way that just feels good and gives you confidence when you're speaking. So good luck with the online exercises. If you need any help from me, as always, you can reach out to me via email at lucas@weaverschool.com. That's all for today. See you in the next lesson.